That's a good point. I never thought about that.
I feel it's a lot the same in life to a certain degree. I mean, there's a lot of grace and forgiveness with not being exact or precise all the time. Obviously, we make mistakes and we can't change the past. So because we can't change the past, we can only learn from the past. And it does nothing good for you to weigh yourself down with mistakes you made in the past, but to use that as an opportunity to propel you into a better future.
Right.
And that's something that a lot of people may learn or realize through the course of life or maturity, that it's okay and it could be a good thing, or you could utilize it and make it a good thing based on your understanding of it, how it happened and what could have prevented it, and then now how you can be better for having experienced it. That's exactly what I'm trying to do with this podcast, is allow people to share their unique set of experiences. No one has experienced the exact same thing you have experienced in your life. No one has the same set of skills or history or family life or upbringing. Even if they lived in the same area or even were part of the same family, you are unique and have value. I am unique and have value. Everyone watching, like, you are unique and you have value. And so this podcast is aimed at helping people realize what they can improve on in their life and learning from the mistakes made by others and what they learned through their experiences. Maybe I don't have to make the same mistakes to still arrive at the same outcome or understanding because I learned from someone who did make those same mistakes. And so it saves us a lot of time and trouble if we do that.
It's hard to have that kind of unbreakable attitude. I think attitude really dictates your success.
100%.
What you're gonna do, what you're working on. I think that's probably the most important thing. So you could have a good attitude and do something wrong, but as long as you don't do the same wrong thing over and over, you keep working at it, eventually you're gonna learn it, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how long it takes.
Everyone makes mistakes, but the professionals have the awareness and the humility to acknowledge their mistakes, to work on it, to mark it, and then to revisit it and put intentional work into practicing it so that they don't make the mistake again. If everyone can make mistakes, but those who are successful are ones who learn from the mistakes and don't make the same mistakes over and over again, or they learn from others' mistakes, then that's one stepping stone toward success. I always thrived in an opportunity where no matter how someone came in to my restaurant, that I would be able to do whatever I could to ensure that they left with a smile. And I think that's a motto for life in general, is just if we can leave either the world or those around us, our communities, our families, better for us having been in it. If we can leave it better than we found it, then there was some purpose or value that we had served in that way. It certainly matters having the right team, having the right people, and surrounding yourself with people who are dedicated to the same outcome, or are able to communicate to identify what the common goal is, and then humble themselves and be responsible to take responsibility and meet that responsibility as best as they can, but also be honest if they're struggling. Sometimes there's not the best outcome. Everyone, to a certain degree, wanted a different outcome, but what outcomes were possible? Sometimes there's no possible outcome where there's no tragedy or loss of life. And that's just a reality that we have to come to terms with, in that there are lesser evils and greater evils, and there are lesser goods and greater goods. And so we just have to weigh, maybe the only path forward was a bad or a worse situation. And so, well, why would someone choose a bad situation? Well, because there was a worse situation that they attempted to avoid. And you never know. There's so much complexity in human life.
Because it's all context, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Just like in language, like literature, context can change the meaning of a word. And often in certain languages, the same word can have different meanings depending on the context. If it were sarcasm or a tone, some way that someone said it, in English specifically, or in literature, it's called context clues. So look at what's around it to attempt to understand what the author, communicator, what message they were trying to send, because we don't always receive the same message that's being sent.
I feel like I learned the most from playing video games. There's a lot of life lessons you can learn from all different games too. So like the one I've been playing recently, City Skylines. There's a lot of logic involved with the puzzle solving, and then League and StarCraft teach efficient time management, efficient ways of doing things, right? Figuring things out correctly. It also teaches patience, like practice. You know, if you want to get better at something, you have to put in the time to do it. Video games are a big source of knowledge, I think. for anybody.
Hello. Welcome to another week's episode of Free to Speak and Think. So this week I sit down with Casey Ibara. We have a great conversation about a handful of topics. As you can tell by the first few minutes of the video, I've been trying to pull out the highlights of the longer form videos, the discussions, and put them at the beginning of the video. I know there's a lot of people that don't like to sit through the entire discussion or maybe don't have the time. And so I've been trying to put the highlights at the beginning. That way you can determine if it's something that you would want to watch more of throughout the rest of the week or later as you have time. Or for those who maybe don't have the time, then they can see the beginning of the video especially and get some of the most relevant highlighted information and value that I had pulled out subjectively. And so that is something that I've been trying to do. I did it on a handful of the earlier videos and I'm going to try to be doing it again. I also have the TikTok channel and a lot of those highlights will be put on there. They're much shorter videos, much shorter clips and more easily digestible than say an hour and a half long of content. I do spend a lot of time editing these videos to try to make it as condensed as possible, say turn a 2.5 hour discussion into about an hour and a half of core dense content. And if you play it at a faster speed, you can definitely get a lot of that in a very short amount of time. But I know that everyone's different. Make sure to add a like if you like the video or the idea for this channel. Add a comment to any of our videos. I'd love to respond to that. Again, I'd like to reiterate that here on this podcast, the Free to Speak and Think, we want to encourage civil discussions and therefore name calling that's say unfounded or baseless or just unnecessary. I want to discourage that kind of discussion, but also encourage people to speak up on opinions if they have them, but keep it civil, please. If you want to see more content, definitely subscribe. Subscribing is free on YouTube. We're also coming to audio podcast only soon, so be looking out for that. We also have our TikTok, as I mentioned. Anyway, with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoy this video with Casey Ibara. I look forward to reading your comments, and please like the video, subscribe, share it if you'd like, and let's get into this week's video. Hello. Welcome to this week's podcast. Today, we have on Casey Ibara. We met playing video games several years ago, so we have been good friends for about 4 or 5 years at least. Go ahead and tell the viewers about yourself. What is the most unique thing about you, or what is something that someone might not know about you from the first time they meet you?
I don't know, the most unique thing? I don't know. I just kind of do my own thing. I don't have anything too unique. I just go to work. I play video games. I'm just trying to figure out how to live like contently. I feel like that's what everybody's trying to do. But
That's true.
I don't know. Nothing to me stands out very much. I like playing drums. That's probably the one thing I really love.
When did you start that? And video games, yeah.
I started playing music. I started percussion in middle school.
Okay.
It was like 12 years ago or something.
So you graduated maybe 5 years ago, give or take?
Yeah, in 2016. So it was like seven years ago.
Oh, okay. Nice. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's been a while.
I graduated 2012, and we actually just recently had our 10-year reunion a couple months ago. And so
Okay.
it doesn't feel like it was that we've been out for 10 years, but actually I wanted to do percussion when I was in middle school, but my last name was toward the end of the alphabetical list and they only had so many slots for each type of instrument. And so since they started at
is that how they
A as the last name, then, okay, pick your instrument. And then they went down the next, and I was like close to the end. And so by the time that it came to me, I didn't have that many options left.
Damn, that's so unlucky.
Yeah. I mean,
it's
sometimes life just works out that way, and it's okay because my mom didn't really want me to do a lot of drumming or making unnecessary noise.
Make a bunch of noise.
But then again,
Yeah.
I started playing clarinet. Didn't love it. I only started because there was some other girls I liked at the time, or a girl or two that were also playing clarinet, or that I was interested in or enjoyed friends.
I had a huge crush on a chick that played the clarinet in high school. Her name
It's always the clarinet.
Julianne.
Ooh,
Yeah, it's always the
Julianne,
clarinet for some reason.
Yeah.
But she was like extremely talented. Like, I don't know, gifted, you would say.
Yeah. Some people are with some things. It didn't start that way. I mean, I kind of had a feel for it, but like the amateur for woodwinds is a lot different than what I eventually ended up playing. So my 6th grade year, I played clarinet. Didn't like it. I mean, I was okay. I wasn't great. I wasn't bad. But I was brand new, obviously, so I wasn't even good. I was just average. And then I went to trumpet because my brother played trumpet, and so I liked it and wanted to be like him at the time.
My brother also played trumpet too.
Played trumpet?
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's, I mean, even more noise than drumming. So it's just funny how that worked out. But yeah, true. And I had some opportunities later, much later, to play for, say, like a bugler for different ceremonies, military ceremonies, or flag burnings, things like that. And then, so that was, or I played trumpet from about 7th grade until I graduated, but it was only in jazz band for the last few years of high school because I was playing the French horn during concert band. So I have more recent experience with brass instruments than woodwinds, but my sister played saxophone, and at a point I was able to pick it up and figure out a scale pretty quickly. She didn't think that was fair at the time. She's like, how can you already do this and play all these songs? But I play by ear. And so it's different per se than but I'm not great at sight reading. Some people are great at sight reading and they see a note and they know certain fingerings. I just know if a note's right or wrong kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
Especially if I've heard it before. Yeah.
I am really bad at sight reading. I can sight read rhythms really well, but like the melodies, I'm bad. I just go by ear.
If I hear it, yeah, exactly. If I hear it, I can whistle it back, hum it back, sing it back. I have a lot of experience with music. I love music. I love creating music. I love being a part. I love listening to music. I think most people like some form of music or art. And so for you, you said you love drumming. So have you been able to express that in, like, music. Say, a band?
Yeah, I was part of a band for a little bit.
Nice.
They were called DNA. I don't know if they broke up or not, but I played a couple of gigs in like Chinatown or downtown area, just like small street gigs sometimes.
Yeah. And how long were you with them?
I was with them for about a year. Eventually, my school stuff kind of, time management. I was kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
I didn't have enough time, but
you didn't have enough time for what you wanted to do or what you loved because there were some other things that took priority at that point in your life?
Yeah, I was still figuring out how to manage my time. So the thing was, like, I would double book myself somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
I had to be 2 places at once, and then I eventually realized, I can't make it to both, and then I have to call one of them. Hey, I can't make. It's real, like, a mess, really.
Yeah.
So I have to figure that out.
Well, and trade-offs. Every time you choose something, you are actively choosing to not do all these other things.
Other thing.
Yeah. And
exactly.
It takes time to even determine what your priorities
are. Prioritize.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So along with drumming, you said you like video games. What about video games do you like? Do you keep coming back to? Is it the games themselves or the social aspect? Talk a little bit more about that.
I feel like I learned the most from playing video games. There's a lot of life lessons you can learn from all different games too. So like the one I've been playing recently, City Skylines. There's a lot of logic involved with the puzzle solving, and then League and StarCraft teach efficient time management, efficient ways of doing things, right? Figuring things out correctly. And it also teaches patience, like practice. If you want to get better at something, you have to put in the time to do it. And I think that's something important that video games teaches people.
For sure.
And it's something I've been trying to work on a lot, and just getting better at stuff, playing drums, my work. And I'm really just trying to hone in and just focus on a couple of things. Try to not, have everything a mess like before, like I was saying.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just good. Video games are a big source of knowledge, I think, for anybody.
Yeah. And there's many different types of games. So video games, you can have console gaming. Many people know of consoles like Xbox, PlayStation. You have gaming, you have GameCube, you have Wii. There's many different consoles.
Yeah, there's a game for everybody out there, pretty much. Yeah, it feels like.
And then there's PC gaming, and now we see a lot of like mobile games, Candy Crush for a while. There's many mobile games like Pokemon Go on top of handheld gaming like Game Boy Advance, and I mean just there's all kinds of different games. And then you have the typical like board games, card games, and most people like some form of games And then there's the games that you can just create out of chores, out of mundane things. You can make it a game to make it more fun or exciting, or to add in competition and some motivation to do better or do the best, because then there's this outcome that or reward that I might want. Yeah, like little friendly competition with like coworkers or something.
I think for me, it's like when I'm at work, it almost feels like I'm playing a roguelike dungeon. So you know how you can start a run, like every day is like a new run. You have to react to different things happening. Yeah. Like when you work at a restaurant, depending on knowing the reservation, sometimes you can tell how busy it's going to be, or like, you know, whether it's going to be weekday, weekend. It's usually busier on the weekends.
Yeah.
But you have this time to like prepare mentally and prepare, you know, everything. And when the rush happens, it's almost like a battle. Like you have to react. You have to make decisions very quickly. And it's a really, I don't know, it's just a cool environment for me to be in. I'm used to it, kind of like from League of Legends and all these RTS games. Like, I don't know, I feel like my mind has been kind of melded into it, but I like it actually.
So you work for, so you touched on a couple things there. So you said one, that if it gets super busy in say like a work environment, it feels like a super intense point in a game, in where your brain immediately turns to some form of like a strategy,
like
a focus,
fight or flight kind of.
Yeah, harnessing that mindset to be able to play as optimally as possible in terms of like maybe life is a game. Yeah. And then you're
like when
just
you
trying
just go into freaking beast mode and just here's all your food. You know, that kind of it's super fun.
Yeah. So you work in a restaurant. So what do you do in the restaurant?
I'm a pantry chef. So I like make the salads, cut the bread, and prep the vegetables. Pretty short staff right now. So I feel like all the back of house workers have been just helping each other do stuff, right? It's a very team oriented environment.
Absolutely.
I mean, it really depends on your teammates too, right? But
always.
I like that, you know, everybody's kind of working to build each other up, and that it's kind of like no man left behind. Like, you know, when things start going bad, like say in League, we have a game where things start going really poorly and someone's like FF at 15. Like, that's not the guy you want on your line, right? You want the guy that's going to be like, let's figure this out. Let's figure out how to get ourselves out of this hole, all these mistakes.
Yeah.
But it's very uplifting spiritually, I think.
Yeah.
Working in that kind of environment.
Yeah, and when you have to work alongside other people, you are dependent on them, they are dependent on you, and you work together, and any one person creates and any one person creates a cog in the machine that essentially breaks down the whole thing, or can break down the whole thing if it's not addressed quickly, appropriately, and efficiently.
It's just the whole system.
Yeah, I have my own experience with that in terms of I was working in a restaurant or a chain restaurant for a period of 8 years off and on, but I worked my way up to assistant manager, and part of that was at times being a shift supervisor. And so you'd come in, you might have 4 people if it's a slow or if it's super late in the night or evening, or you might have 13 people or 15 people if it's a rush, and you're effectively tasked with make sure everything gets done and make sure it gets done as fast as possible and as well as possible. And you have to figure out how you're going to do that with the resources that you have, the human resources. So you come in, you observe the initial state of the restaurant in terms of how many people, how dirty is it, what's the highest priority, and then you kind of set boundaries or a blueprint of I'd like to have this part cleaned by this time or this done by this time so that everything can run smoothly. But you can't do it all. You're more delegating or you're more supervising. You might need to step in and speed certain things up at times, or make sure certain things get done at certain intervals, or make sure you always have enough food, all that kind of thing. Yeah. So I have my own experience with that, but certainly matters having the right team, having the right people, and surrounding yourself with people who are dedicated to the same outcome, or are able to communicate to identify what the common goal is, and then humble themselves and be responsible to take responsibility and meet that responsibility as best as they can, but also be honest if they're struggling or if they can't keep up or if they might have a different idea as far as they might be faster in another place. We had a phrase that was called aces in their places, as one of my managers had called it. I don't know if it was the brand specific. They had said aces in their places because even if you were learning another role, it might not be best to learn it at that time. There might be a ton of stress, or you might not be able to keep up, and it's going to delay all kinds of things. And so everyone goes to the position, or you are tasked with assigning everyone to a position where they are best at, in that you can get things out as fast as possible. And then after the 20 minutes or 2 hours or whatever that rush is, then you can go back to whatever your job was and take more time learning it. So yeah, I have a lot of experience in that area, and I love the work environment. I love the people I worked with for the most part. I love the opportunity to make people smile and to fix problems that people had. They said, hey, I need this different than the way it happened. And so you would say, okay, let's see what we can do to resolve that for you. So I always thrived in an opportunity where no matter how someone came in to my restaurant, that I would be able to do whatever I could to ensure that they left with a smile. Even if things didn't go exactly how they expected or how we had wanted, that it was better having come in there. And I mean, I think that's a motto for life in general, is just if we can leave either the world or those around us, our communities, our families better for us having been in it, if we can leave it better than we found it, then there was some purpose or value that we had served in that way.
That's a good point. I never thought about that much.
Well, you'll have a lot of time for thinking. You still have another 50, 70 years, give or take, of life.
Who knows?
Perhaps, I don't know. Yeah,
expectancy is gonna be.
that's true. That's true. Yeah, we never know. I mean, like, there are people that are taken, their lives are taken so early, and you never really know. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow or next week or next year or even like in an hour. Like, it's just crazy. It's crazy how much control we have over it too. I mean, at any point, we're not really always aware of the potential outcomes if our actions are different. We try to be aware of as much as we can. Like earlier, you had talked about preparation. The preparation is, you can only do so much preparing.
Yep.
But when you're put in that situation, it's a RTS, a real-time strategy. Sometimes. Yeah, you have to be able to respond quickly with something that is good enough, and then later reflect on what were some things you didn't see, what were some things you learned. Exactly. Right. Yeah.
It's the same mindset. RTS. I like it.
Yeah. And it is all about the mindset. It's so much about the attitude that you carry. When I was working with the state, they had posters all around of different inspirational quotes in the building. And one of them was, attitude is altitude. And when you really think about it, the way you carry yourself, the outlook you have on life, and it's a choice. It's a choice how you respond. It's a choice if you're going to react or take some time to process everything and then respond. And that determines your potential and how high you can soar, or if you're just going to stay on the ground. And then if you can bring others up and elevate others as well, you can lift them up to where you're at in that level of altitude, or if you're going to just be dragging others down around you. Like attitude, and that quote, like, there's so many different ways to interpret it, and it goes so much deeper than just the 3 words, attitude is altitude. But it's really so true, and most people don't realize that they have so much control and at least influence over the outcomes that they experience in their life, or not everything, obviously, because you interact with other people.
It's really like self-actualization, kind of. It's hard to have it like that kind of unbreakable attitude, but I think attitude like really dictates your success, like
100%.
What you're gonna do, like what you're working on. I think that's probably the most important thing. So you could have a good attitude and do something wrong, but as long as you don't do the same wrong thing over and over, you keep working at it, like eventually you're gonna learn it, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how long it takes.
So music, on that same note, I had a band teacher, and he said, the only difference between you and a professional musician, what's the only difference between, I want to see if you know, what's the only difference between you and a professional musician?
I actually don't know the answer to this one. What is it?
A pencil.
Oh, yeah.
Because we were told, like, either when we're sight reading, if we get an opportunity to just go through the notes and the fingering and to see if we make a mistake, or if we're playing through in practice, then we make a note of it. We use our pencil. Well, this is a pen, but a pencil to alter or to remind ourselves, here, or breathe here.
Practice this
or,
later.
Exactly. Yeah. Go over here and here. And so everyone makes mistakes, but the professionals have the awareness and the humility to acknowledge their mistakes, to work on it, to mark it, and then to revisit it and to put intentional work into practicing it so that they don't make the mistake again.
Mm-hmm.
If everyone can make mistakes, but those who are successful are ones who learn from the mistakes and don't make the same mistakes over and over again, or they learn from others' mistakes, then that's one stepping stone toward success. And
Exactly.
anyone can
That's
do
why if everybody just made mistakes or wasn't afraid to make mistakes, then I think we learn a lot, actually.
Yeah. The fear of failure. Our biggest mistake is not making mistakes or being afraid to make mistakes. And so it's not that we should fear making a mistake. It's that we should fear not making a mistake, or we should not fear making a mistake. I don't know if I said that right, but we should fear not making a mistake, or we shouldn't fear making a mistake, because those are the opportunities where we really get to learn and grow. And I actually had some coaches on some of my sports teams who emphasized that you don't learn anything from winning. You learn things from making mistakes and then revisiting it and saying, how could we have won? What did we do wrong? Like, how can we better prepare for a situation in the future? All of that came from making mistakes and then having the attitude of, we need to learn from these mistakes so we don't make the same mistakes again. Like, it applies to so many different areas in life, no matter if it's relationships, romantic or professional or familial relationships or careers. I mean, there's so many different areas, even like politics and human history. There's so many different mistakes that are made either by us or others that we can still look at. And once we understand them, how it came to be and what the effects, the outcomes of it were, then we can perhaps come to a better understanding and a better conclusion, better solution of what we should do next time if we're ever faced with that conflict again, that situation.
I had a history teacher one time. It's kind of like on the general topic, but it's important to study history. I think they're just trying to get the kids to pay attention. They're saying it's important to study history because that's how you learn from mistakes that happened a long time ago. Right. But then you can also learn the things that people haven't caught, or like people haven't seen over the course of many, many, many years. Mm-hmm. For example, like slavery, that was one really big thing that happened
throughout
for a
much
long
of
time.
human history, and even today in some
it's
cultures,
only it's still, so like some mistakes people are just oblivious, right? All the time.
They get used to
and
what's
even
normal.
when you're trying, it's really hard to identify sometimes. But I think studying history is a good way of figuring out long-term problems. Or at least that's what I learned from my history teacher.
Unfortunately, I was not as much into loving the studying of history, at least the years that I was going through public education.
Oh yeah, I hated history too.
My brother was much more of a history buff. He loved learning about wars and different cultures and societies. And I think now I'm much more interested in that than I was then, for sure, because I feel that the attitude, the mindset that I have about it now is, what can we learn from them? Why did they make the same mistakes we're making today? Or why didn't they change them? Things that we changed, why didn't they change it? Or what barriers were in place? How were the conditions different? Especially like religion is one big one. If there's religious texts or holy texts that were written at a time, do they apply the same to us as they did then? Or do we now need to put ourselves in a mindset of who it was written to or who it was written for? And then once we have that context, we might get something different out of those texts. Mm-hmm. And I don't think anyone knows everything, especially about history.
You have to be a literature buff for that. I think that's where all the subjects in school are kind of coming together. You look at things from different lenses. I learned that one in English class or literature, and that one can apply to history as well. Like very often you have people doing things and you try to get to the root of their intentions, of their actions, the motivation, and really figure out what's going on, or like how humans think. Right?
Yeah. Absolutely. When I was in college, I wanted to pursue psychology because I love knowing the why. Why might someone think it's okay to do something, or what could have brought someone to do this now? Like what happened in their past or what influenced them? You talked about intentions, understanding intentions and motivations. Sometimes the outcome is very different than what was intended, and it was just a lack of foresight, or something happened that they had no control over or that they couldn't realistically anticipate. And even if that was the outcome, it wasn't intentional. And especially in the criminal justice system, that's called, I believe it's called mens rea, in that either, I can't remember which, either it's the capacity to understand what you were doing, or it was having the intent to have this be the outcome. And that determines the degree of punishment that is warranted, or discipline that is warranted, your debt to society, based on if you intended, like say premeditated, is much worse than unintentional. Like you reached down and you were driving, you reached down to pick something up that fell, or you spilled a cup of coffee, and as you looked down and reached, your hand got caught, your hand turns, and you hit, say, a pedestrian or a biker on the side of the road. I mean, there's all kinds of things that could happen, but the intention was not there. It was more of a negligence, which still had an undesired or tragic outcome. But we have to put ourselves in their shoes and understand. I think one of the highest profile cases recently that really identifies that. I mean, there are several that people can be quick to make a judgment on if they don't have that background context or understand the intentions or the motivations of the person at the time, were several of the protests or the riots that had happened when, say, George Floyd. There was an incident where there were a lot of people that were quick to make a judgment or an assumption about something, that maybe there were other facts that should have been considered that might have changed the situation, or the desire for retribution or revenge. Or even in the Kyle Rittenhouse case, again, it's if you were in their shoes, how would you have felt given the information that you had at the time and what you felt if you felt threatened, something like that. So obviously people come out on different sides of the situation, or maybe they struggled to put themselves in that situation. Everyone wanted a different outcome, or to a certain degree, but what outcomes were possible? Sometimes there's not the best outcome. Sometimes there's no possible outcome where there's no tragedy or loss of life. And that's just a reality that we have to come to terms with, in that there are lesser evils and greater evils, and there are lesser goods and greater goods. And so we just have to weigh, maybe the only path forward was a bad or a worse situation. And so, well, why would someone choose a bad situation? Well, because there was a worse situation that they attempted to avoid. And you never know. There's so much complexity in human life.
Because it's all context, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Context can change. I mean, just like in language, like literature, context can change the meaning of a word. And often in certain languages, the same word can have different meanings depending on the context, if it were sarcasm or a tone, some way that someone said it. In English specifically, or in literature, it's called context clues. So look at what's around it to attempt to understand it, what the author, communicator, what message they were trying to send, because we don't always receive the same message that's being sent, which is why it's really up to both people to communicate in the best way they know how, the best way possible, and then to even ask questions and clarify and challenge to say, wait, was this really what you meant? I understood you to have said this, and paraphrase it, because they could be very different. And if you don't speak up about that, then you could have a much worse situation on your hands that could have been avoided with just a simple question or clarification.
I feel like I always have to ask for context when I'm doing stuff at work. I know some people get annoyed sometimes, like I'm always asking questions.
Yeah.
But, I make sure, right? Because a couple of times people tell me, oh, drop a chicken, drop a ribeye. And I go, heard, and I do it. They're like, what is that? What? Didn't you just say drop one chicken? They're like, no. Huh? So I was like, I have to, sometimes, I think it's also because of tinnitus, right? From marching bands, sometimes cannot hear things. They're like, I have to go to people really close to hear them. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like I'm hearing things at work, like randomly hear voices, people telling me to drop food. Because it happens so often, right?
Yeah.
Or like the ticket printer. when I'm about to go to sleep.
Oh yeah. When you're about to go to sleep and your mind just replays. Yeah. My mind would do that when I was playing a lot of video games. My mind would just relive instances of that, no matter what I was doing during a day, whether it was conversations or video games or certain movies that I'd watched or TV shows. It was all just a replay to a certain degree, or my brain expecting to be in a certain environment or certain things to happen as external stimuli, and they just didn't. And so it was just the connection that either, well, was my brain not able to turn it off, or and often I work closing shift.
Like overloaded stimuli.
Yeah. Oh, like, for sure.
I'm still trying to freaking wind down or something, you know, before I'm going to sleep. Like I'm still in that work mode of just like, oh, what's going on? What's happening?
And it's worse if you're the last shift. If you work and you're closing and then you go straight home, you're pretty tired. You've worked a 10 or 12 hour day or more. And then you come home and you barely get home safely because you're nearly falling asleep when you're driving. And then you just want to pass out and fall asleep. Your brain just says, no, you're not done working yet. And I'm like, no, I am. Just fall asleep, please.
Let me sleep.
It's okay to relax now. Yeah.
I know exactly what you mean, Peter. I struggle with that so often, honestly. But I'm trying to work on just recentering myself. That's what I was talking about earlier. Is a process.
Recentering yourself. What do you mean by that? Identifying, like changing your attitude, realizing the reality of your situation or your own context, what made you want something, desire something, or intend to achieve a certain outcome. What do you mean center yourself?
As in, I'm trying to figure out the things that I should commit my time to, things I should like really commit myself to. And all of that kind of leads into just a healthier state of mind, I think.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Not being all over the place, really focusing. And that's what I'm trying to do. And I'm thinking that will help me with my sleep and with any other like emotional problems.
Yeah.
And really, that's all I've been trying to do the past year or two, is just like thinking what makes me happy, what's going to make me healthy, what's going to make me just run, you know?
Yeah.
Operate efficiently.
Yeah. Well, you're not a robot.
I feel like the context always changes though. Like when I say about committing to decisions, it's because of how life changes.
Absolutely.
Your context can change all the time. And decisions you make, sometimes when you commit to something, it's not what you actually want to do, or sometimes it's not what I actually want to do. And I'm trying to figure out those moments where I'm like, is this really what I want to do right now, or is this leading me to where I want to go? That kind of thing. Right now, it's kind of a jumbled up mess. But
well, and sometimes it might seem
like a sorting process.
Exactly, yeah. And sometimes it might seem like it's the best thing until new context arises. And then you're like, oh, man, it's no longer the best thing. It might have been the best thing at the time, but now I know it's not the best thing. And to continue pursuing it would be a mistake. And I mean, that happens all the time in League. You go to do something, and then if you hesitate, it's no longer the best thing to do because there was a certain time slot or window. And I feel
it's timing, right?
Yeah, I feel it's a lot the same in life to a certain degree. I mean, there's a lot of grace and forgiveness with not being exact or precise all the time. Obviously, we make mistakes and we can't change the past. So because we can't change the past, we can only learn from the past. And it does nothing good for you to weigh yourself down with mistakes you made in the past, but to use that as an opportunity to propel you into a better future.
Right.
And that's something that a lot of people may learn or realize through the course of life or maturity, that it's okay. And it could be a good thing, or you could utilize it and make it a good thing based on your understanding of it, how it happened and what could have prevented it. And then now how you can be better for having experienced it. That's exactly what I'm trying to do with this podcast, is allow people to share their unique set of experiences. No one has experienced the exact same thing you have experienced in your life. No one has the same set of skills or history or family life or upbringing. Even if they lived in the same area or even were part of the same family, you are unique and have value. I am unique and have value. Everyone watching, like, you are unique and you have value. And so this podcast is aimed at helping people realize what they can improve on in their life and learning from the mistakes made by others and what they learn through their experiences. Maybe I don't have to make the same mistakes to still arrive at the same outcome or understanding because I learned from someone who did make those same mistakes. And so it saves us a lot of time and trouble if we do that.
That's why I think when we say say like committing to a decision. Say you're committing to a mistake. You should commit to the mistake, right? That's how you learn from the experience. That's what makes you into the person you're going to be, and shouldn't be afraid to commit to mistakes. I think this is all stuff I'm trying to work on, honestly. I'm
Yeah.
like just repeating it because
Yeah.
this stuff I need to hear from myself,
Absolutely.
everybody else, not be afraid. Because I feel like I go through life way too much being timid, shy, not doing as much as I want to.
Yeah.
But I really want to just commit to more things.
And what's stopping you?
Myself.
That's so true, though.
Right?
It's so true. Yeah. Your biggest enemy is
Exactly.
yourself. Yeah.
Can I take a quick break, Peter?
Yeah,
It's getting
totally.
really hot. And I gotta turn on my air. It's probably gonna be loud.
Yeah, I got
We'll see.
2 on today. It was 82 degrees earlier.
Oh, that's exactly what it is right now. I looked at my thermostat.
Yeah, and you're much further south than we are, and it's still probably, is it still daylight for you?
Yeah, it's daylight.
Yeah. So I mean, now it's cooled off. 78 in the house.
So, yeah, I'll be back in like 10 minutes. Is that
All
okay?
right. For sure. Yeah, totally.